Ask Me Anything About Politics. This is the show where you can ask anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is where you can ask all the questions that you were worried about asking to other people because you were worried that they were, I don't know, too left wing or too right wing or too basic or too complicated. Every question asked in good faith here is given a good faith response, at least everyone that I can get to. Sometimes the comments do be popping off. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not a show for fighting. This is not a show for debating. What's up, the Fixer Mike? Great to see you again. I know there's a lot of really popular shows out there on the internet where Republicans and Democrats yell at each other and call each other names. That is not this show. So if that's what you're looking for, then you're not going to find it here. It is just going to be good faith engagement on the substance so that hopefully we can all have a better shared understanding of what is going on in the world and how we can potentially fix the multitude of problems that are barreling down the pike. So any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. There is no such thing as a dumb question. It can be as simple or as complicated as you like. I don't believe in making fun of people for trying to learn new things or trying to expand their vocabulary. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can feel like trying to learn a new language. Anne says, "Gotta see you in a dress." No, I don't do that on my live stream. And no tea, no shade to anybody who does, but that is not what I do on my channel. All right, where was I? Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there. So part of what we do here on the show is we try to clear things up and we try to make clear what is accurate information and what is not accurate information and what is stuff that has been debunked many, many times in the past. And then hopefully we can all start to build a shared reality once again so that we all know what's going on in our country and in our government and we can have a better idea of how we can go about fixing these problems, because if we can't even agree on what the problems are, then how do we go about fixing them? Everybody is welcome here. What's up, Bert's? Good to see you again. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I'm not here to roast you or judge you based on your political beliefs. There's not going to be any bullying or harassing from me. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. P. Cow says, "Are we in space heading to the moon, or are they in Arizona?" We are in space headed to the moon. The Fixer Mike says, "How much have you see the 25th Amendment bandied around, and how likely is it?" The Republican Party did not fully impeach Donald Trump. They did not vote to convict him in the Senate. And this was after their lives were threatened by the angry mob that he sent to murder them. So if they weren't going to do it for that, I don't have a ton of faith that they're going to do it right now. Things would have to get like really, really bad. Stock market would have to crater, gas prices would have to go up even higher. Like, I don't know. I really don't know if there are any elected Republicans who truly believe that continuing to support Trump is the wrong thing to do, either politically, morally, for their personal career prospects, etc., etc. The Fixer Mike says, "Well, the 25th is the VP and the cabinet initiated." Yes, but I'm including those people in the elected Republicans thing. Some dude says, "What do you think is the most realistic amount of seats the Democrats can take?" I think it really depends. There's the Democratic Party potentially is going to benefit greatly from the redistricting war that happened over the past couple of years, because in addition to, I think that they were able to gerrymander more seats than the Republicans were, but additionally, the Texas gerrymander might have been too aggressive and might end up not working out in their favor. Add to that, you've got an enthusiasm gap where people that don't like Trump and Republicans are really enthusiastic about voting in midterms, and people that do like Trump and Republicans are not very enthusiastic about voting in the midterms. So yeah, I'm assuming that we're going to see some pretty massive turnout. The only thing that I think that could stop the Democratic Party from having a real wave election in both the House and the Senate is the Trump administration and Republicans doing wildly illegal and immoral shit to try to stop people from voting or change vote totals or use ICE to intimidate voters. So yeah, it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that this election is historic, too big to rig, as they're going to say. Too legit to quit says, ain't going to happen, dude. What ain't gonna happen? Peacow says, I think they will get less than half. I'm not really sure what you mean by less than half. You mean less than half of the available seats? Do you think that Democrats will get less than half of the available seats or less than half of the House or what? Let's see here. I can't really read your name, but it looks like it says Reedrow. Says, take on veganism. I'm not a vegan, but I've been struggling to see logical arguments against it. Yeah, I generally encourage people to be vegan. It's better for your health. It's better for the environment. It can be difficult to go right from being a carnivore to being a vegan. So I don't really advocate for an all for nothing approach to that sort of thing. Like I myself am kind of a partial vegan at that, where I'm like, yeah, if I feel like eat meat, I eat meat. But there's a lot of meals that I have that are 100% vegan. OICU says 81 million votes. Harris didn't. Why? Because Biden cheated? ? Or she wasn't that qualified. So yeah. So you're saying that Biden got 81 million votes, but Harris didn't. Is it because Biden cheated or because she wasn't qualified? So I don't think it's either of those things. OICU. I think it has to do with the fact that Harris only had 100 days to mount her campaign. There was a massive propaganda and misinformation campaign of on all of social media trying to convince people to either not vote or vote for the Republican Party. And number three, there was incumbency bias where people were just mad at whoever was in charge at the cost of living increases, even though the Democratic Party was not responsible for that. Air Fennis says, do the Jews control the world? No, they don't. Nine Dimension says, politics is to separate the mass to make each other hate each other, not come together. Some politics is like that, but that's not what politics is entirely. You'll never hear me on here disparaging other voters. Nine Dimension. Okay, Jacob says, what's your opinion on Donald Trump? He's a bad guy. He's incompetent. He's really bad at his job. He's extremely corrupt, massive liar. And I could say worse things about him, but when I do, I tend to get reported. Tom Maximoff says, do you only do American politics mostly? You can ask other questions, but I can't guarantee you that I will be able to answer. Okay. Not Donald Trump, Donald Tusk. I don't know who Donald Tusk is. Evan says, why do you think the use is shifting right more than normal? So I don't believe that trend is maintaining, Evan. So first, we did see some younger people trending right. They tended to be male mostly. That's just kind of like exaggerating a split that we have seen in politics for a while, where more women tend to vote Democrat than men, more men tend to vote Republican than women. But I think you're seeing a backlash now where all of those young men who thought that voting for Donald Trump would give, the stock market a boost and would decrease cost of living and would keep us out of wars in the Middle East, like they're seeing the lies, like they're seeing them come to fruition. They're seeing the massive wastes of money and wastes of life. And so, a lot of polling is suggesting that is coming back around. As for what caused it to begin with, I think massive misinformation and disinformation. These people were aggressively lobbied in like online gaming spheres and things like that. And they were wildly successful. Evan says, follow up, do you think these fooled voters are flipping left or are going further to the right? I think some are going to the left and some are going to the right. Some are not going further to the right, but are not going to the left. They're basically just like going to live in that independent space where they believe where they believe that there's no real good party, but that we should punish the Republicans for everything that they've done over the past couple of years by either voting for Democrats or not voting at all. So yeah, I think it's complicated. Mohammad says, opinions on AIPAC or Israel in general. The current government of Israel and the lobbying organization AIPAC are both bad. The current government of Israel is guilty of war crimes and genocide. AIPAC is consistently trying to lose Democrats and progressive Democrats their elections so that they can get politicians who will just do whatever Netanyahu wants them to do. So yeah, I'm against both of those organizations. Studio Re TV says, are you left wing or right wing? I am left wing. A Rueda says, what about a new party? So it would be a lot harder to create a new party and get the national infrastructure to actually win elections and name ID and popularity and funding than it would just be to change the current parties by voting in the primary elections. That would be the easiest way that we can get a new political party, is just mounting challenges in the primary to the politicians in the party that you usually associate with. Let's see here. Turner Boy Matt says, bro, sometimes I want to disagree for my mental health, but I feel so guilty. You know what I mean? Disengage for my mental health, but I feel so guilty. You know what I mean? 100%, Turner Boy Matt. And that's part of the Republican strategy, is to make you feel like just paying attention to politics is going to be disastrous for your mental health. And so part of the work of trying to help going forward is making sure that you're also taking care of yourself. So, we got to be doing all the things. We got to be boycotting and striking and protesting and organizing and recruiting and convincing and putting political pressure on our elected representatives and business leaders and billionaires and companies and shit like that. But, you do a little bit of that. And once you start getting a little too stressed out, then go do some things that are just for you. Be a part of the world where you zoom out and you see, okay, how can I be a positive member of society? How can I try to help what's going on here? But then when that gets too stressful, you zoom in and be part of the world where you love your friends and you love your family and you go to the movies and you go get meals and you laugh and have the joy that is the foundation of what we are trying to protect. Like, in essence, all we're trying to do here is make it so that every person in the country and potentially the world is free to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. So let's see some of that happiness that you are so concerned about protecting. And then once you feel it again, then hopefully you'll have a little bit more juice to get out there and do the work. Seafly says, you heard about the Obama grilled cheese sandwich? No, I have not. Evan says, if it was a utopia, what political and economic system would you pick? Probably some combination of like socialism and communism. C. Kyle says, Trump. That's not a question. Some dude says, do you think Democrats left will stop pushing left after Trump, or will they get complacent? I don't really know what you mean by that, some dude. Like, when you mean we'll stop pushing left after Trump. Because many people believe that the Democratic Party isn't far enough left for, at all. Some people believe the Democrats are too far to the right. Some people believe they're too far to the left. So I think after Trump, we will continue to see the Democratic Party attempting to be a big and inclusive tent where you have people like Chuck Schumer and you have people like AOC. P. Krause says, should governments prioritize undocumented immigration over strict border enforcement? I don't really believe that this is an either or situation. I think that, we have a ton of data showing that immigrants are a net positive wherever they go. And so we should be allocating resources to making sure that we are able to bring people into the country who want to be here and be a productive member of society. But at the same time, making sure that people are not coming here illegally, and also making sure that we are getting rid of people who are behaving poorly in this country, people who are doing crimes and shit like that. Those people should be deported. Okay, Fletch lives again. Great to see you again. Says, is Trump's Easter morning tweet more unhinged than any of his previous tweets? Yeah, I kind of think he probably didn't write that one. It doesn't really feel like one that he wrote. So, but definitely unhinged. That's, that's for darn sure. The fella has not been hinged for a long time. Okay, let's see here. Scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. Yo Nay says, they said they lost the keys of Hormuz to open it again. Who said that? The Iranians? Their troll game has been top notch. All right, D. Scott and Muzz King, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. All right, now let's scroll down and see if we got any new comments here. John Bradley says, thoughts on soda prices crashing due to ineligible for EBT? Is this corporate cronyism? Ooh, that's interesting. So I don't know anything about this story, so you'll have to let me know if how accurate any of that information is. My guess is that it's possible that Big Soda was inflating their own costs because they were able to get more money from people that were using food stamps to buy their product. But now that people on food stamps cannot buy their products, they are seeing potentially a huge drop in their customer base, and therefore they need to make their products more affordable. That's my guess, but again, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. Netnull says prediction for war to end and result. I've got no fucking idea, man. It is chaos over there. I don't think Trump knows what's going on. I don't think anybody in his cabinet's got any fucking control of the situation. Oh, hey, Scott says, hey, I know you. Do I know you? Oh, hey, Scott. Def Me says, hey, Trump is live right now, and trust me, I am disappointed. Do you mean he's live, or do you mean like he's live streaming? Not streaming, but like on the news or something. Clean Fresh Edit says, what should Democrats' position on trans participation in sports be? I guess it would be that this is such a tiny issue that we should deal with it on a case-by-case basis. Like, we regularly see men who have transitioned into women still not competing at elite levels in those sports, still not setting, records, still not dominating in their field. Where I don't believe that a trans woman has ever medaled in the Olympics. So kind of shoot some holes in the rights argument that men are just doing this willy-nilly so that they can achieve success in sporting. So yeah, that's my general take on it. Okay, Jalen Chudson says the U.S. is cooked, not fully. We can get out of this, Jalen, but we are pretty well cooked. We are definitely medium well at the moment. John Abbott over on YouTube, great to see you again. Any thoughts on Trump wanting $152 million to reopen Alcatraz? It's a pretty unintelligent thing to do, I would say. It's a massive waste of money. Like, Alcatraz is making so much money as a tourist destination. It would need renovations, and it would be crazy expensive to run. And like, what's even the fucking point? Like, we already have enough jails. Like, we have more people in jail now than any other country in the world. We have plenty of space for them. It's massive waste of money, massive waste of energy. Yeah, can't say enough negative things about that. Shork says, is the Air Force One redesign Trump's greatest accomplishment? I mean, I think undisputably his greatest accomplishment would be Project Warp Speed. Now, how much he's able to take credit for it, or was he just like the guy who was like, hey, guys, figure this shit out ASAP, and then just dipped, and then other people did it? Like, who the fuck knows? Okay, Jalen says, not gonna lie, we should all move to Canada. That's a very personal decision, Jalen. If it works out better for you to move, then I'm not going to tell you not to do that. But yeah, I would much rather live in a place that was not going what is currently going on in America. But that doesn't really fit with my life, unfortunately. Shahar Min says, do you know if Israel helped rescue the American pilots? That I do not know. Sam says, what are the chances that Keir Starmer steps down this year? No clue. What's up, Miz? Gonna be all right. Good to see you. Def Me says, did you read the new Islamabad Accord thing? No, I don't even know what that is. Okay, but do P-Cow says, important question. What's your option of Hershey's removal of cocoa butter from their chocolates? I don't know too much about the politics of chocolate corporations. I will just say that pretty much every piece of chocolate that gets produced has an unhealthy amount of lead in it, and y'all should do research on which chocolates have less lead in them and only eat those. Ole says, do you like communism? I mean, if you define communism as workers owning the means of production, then I like it. The economic system that we have right now is where workers are creating 90% of the profits and only getting 5% of them, where the manager class and the CEO class and the owner class are stealing all of the profits off of the efforts of the working class. And I think that we need to do something to change that dynamic. Def Me says it's like Pakistan is mediating between us and Iran and conveying their requests. Well, yeah, obviously peace is better. John Abbott says, did you see that Sky TV is doing an SNL UK? This is the third weekend. I got real confused when I saw an SNL vid on YouTube that was about Keir Starmer. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched any of it, but Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why Lord Michaels is deciding that now is the time to do that, but interesting. Meg says, "Are you pro-choice or pro-life?" I am pro-choice, but even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for the Democratic Party because Democratic policies decrease abortions. Republican policies increase abortions, and they make pregnancy more dangerous for women. Volsi Destine says, "Do you think Tulsi Gabbard is next to get fired? Potentially." Scott Clyro says, "Best accomplishment, making the Oval Room look like Liberace's favorite fever dream." I don't think that was a good thing that he did, though. Meg says, "I am Republican, but I am not MAGA." Well, why are you Republican, Meg? Nabil Maz says, "Do you think the administration is becoming a dictatorship?" Trump is trying to make his presidency into a dictatorship. He wants his presidency to be like Putin, like Xi Jinping's, like Kim Jong Un. Like, that's what he wants. He wants to be able to die in office and then hand the throne down to his children. Whether he will be successful or not is completely up to people like you and me. All right, Cac Peck says, "How do we lower the shootings in America?" That is a really good question. So I think that we need to do a little bit of both things. I think we need to invest more in mental health to make sure that people don't feel like they want to go do shootings, whatever version of shootings that there are. We need to address poverty because you don't have violent robberies with guns that go awry when people can afford to live. And also, we need to have more gun control regulation where there's more of an emphasis on safety and responsibility and potentially insurance, licensing, background checks, etc., etc. Meg says, "I'm Republican because of traditional values, and for a lot of Republicans agree with that, don't have to do with Trump." What do you mean by traditional values, Meg? Like, that could be a bunch of different things. Samuel Lemont Edwards says, "What do you think about socialism?" I mean, if it's things like us paying taxes for universal health care instead of having to pay for, private insurance, then I'm all for it. Nabil says, "What do you think American policy towards China be now that it's clear who is the stronger force?" That is a really good question, and there are going to be way smarter people than me who are going to try to do something about that. I think that the biggest issues are going to be the ways in which China is dominating America. And we have to sort of like repair our alliances so that we can have a more powerful sort of like coalition against China trying to dominate the markets or trying to take over any of their neighboring countries, things like that. We should stop focusing on trying to harm China and trying to drag their feet, but instead trying to lift up our own renewable energy and our own, high-tech manufacturing and shit like that, which was happening during the Biden administration. And then for some reason, people voted for Republicans instead of Democrats. All right, Mix, I believe in man and women. I don't agree with the whole transgender thing, and I'm for Americans and our military. I guess I can understand that, Meg. The way that I view it is that if somebody wants to be a member of the LGBTQ community, or not even wants to be, but just like that's the only way that they feel that they can be happy people, then I just kind of figured that doesn't really affect me at all. So why the hell not? And I know a lot of people who are in the LGBTQ community, and they're great. They're wonderful friends and wonderful parents, and I just don't understand. I don't understand why a person would vote to keep those people from being able to do the things that they want to do. And as far as like supporting the military, like it kind of feels like the Republican Party is throwing the military under the bus. Don't you agree with that, Meg? Like, have you heard Trump talk about the military? Have you seen Pete Hegseth just like firing people in the military just for being black or being a woman? The Trump administration cutting funding for veterans so that now they are out of a job and out of the home. Like, Meg says, "I don't follow Trump. I told you that." Yeah, but the Republican Party that is currently in Congress is letting him get away with that. Like, they could be stopping him. They could be stopping Doge. They could be stopping, all of the various cuts that he is making to veterans organizations and initiatives, but they're not. They're just kind of like letting everything happen. Cac Peck says, "Is deportation bad?" No, no. But I mean, there are bad ways to do it and there are good ways to do it. Patriot 76 says Bondi was trying to get Trump out of office. I haven't read that, Patriot. I find that to be a very interesting narrative, though. I want to follow that thread if it's real. Volsey Destine says thoughts on Pam Bondi getting fired. With every firing that happens in the Trump administration, there's always the fear, and it usually is warranted, that he's going to replace her with somebody worse. But it is a nice bit of schadenfreude to know that people that are doing really shitty work are no longer in that job. Okay, let's see here. Def Me says, breaking news in Israel kills 2 more medics. Man, what is wrong with them? Yeah, I don't know, man. It is long since time for us to reevaluate that alliance and to stop sending them more money and weapons to kill more medics and reporters and Americans. And Palestinians, of course, obviously. Kayak Frank says, should I take my life savings to the casino today? No. Kakpek says, is Netanyahu committing a genocide or is it self-defense? It is genocide. It is war crimes. A bunch of independent organizations have confirmed that it is a genocide. Flynn says, this isn't about politics, but do you think Artemis 2 mission is fake? No, I do not think that the Artemis 2 mission is fake. All right. Excellent questions so far, everybody. For people that are just joining us, my name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left-wing or right-wing. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. I'm not here to roast you or judge you. You know, my new friend Meg here, who has announced that she is a Republican. You know, we're being super nice to her. I don't know if people in the chat are, but I am. That's for darn sure. I'm sure that Meg would agree with that. Spike says, did we really fake the moon landing, or do we really land on it? We really did land on it. Shork says, do you believe NASA leadership for pandering? Do we blame NASA leadership for pandering to Trump? I haven't really seen any of this pandering. I'm curious what that is in reference to. Patriot says, I watched Artemis in takeoff here in Florida. It was great. Yeah, people were seeing it from their planes. It seemed really cool. Meg says, anyone thinks Artemis is fake is weird. Sorry, but I can't stand the constant conspiracy theorists. Yeah, Meg, how do you feel that most of the people in the Republican Party believe in conspiracy theories? How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Okay, Dat169 says, hi, I'm from the EU. I heard something like ICE operates here. How do they differ? Why is ICE so powerful? I haven't heard anything about ICE operating in the EU. That seems illegal. Okay, Meg says, what about yours? There are way fewer conspiracy theorists in the base of the Democratic Party than in the base of the Republican Party, Meg. And I'm happy to send you data on that. If you don't believe me, like I'll send you the reports or the polling or whatever. Kakpek says, was Obama a good president? Yes, very much so. Kathy says, it's completely fake and use of being full. It was done on April Fools. That is inaccurate, Kathy. You're in question jail. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Meg says, I think we can agree to disagree. Or you can look at the material that I'm sending you, Meg, and see if it maybe changes your mind. Are you open to having your mind changed about things? You know, are you upset that the Republican Party is allowing Trump to disrespect the military and allowing them to defund programs that help, that help our veterans? Like, that stuff should upset you if you're pro-military, right? What's up, Ecuadorian? Great to see you again. All right, Meg, then send me a DM and I will send you all the material that I have about Republicans being way more conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theorists. Jay says, why did the DNC put their finger on the scale against Bernie Sanders? Hold on a second. Period is spamming the comments with, are you left or right? I am left. So yeah, Jay, I believe that there were good faith and bad faith reasons for people in the DNC to have done that. First, I should say that I don't think that the DNC putting their finger on the scale changed things all that much. Like, Clinton fucking kicked Bernie Sanders' ass in that election. And I was campaigning for Bernie. I was upset about it, but it is true that way more people voted for Hillary than voted for Bernie. But yeah, I think that some people were worried that Bernie Sanders was going to threaten their positions of power as people that were like more on the pro-corporate friendly rich people side of the Democratic Party. I think there were other people who were just like, if we nominate Bernie Sanders, we're going to get fucking killed. And Donald Trump it should be the easiest person in the world to beat in an election. And it would suck if we had this fucking easy ass win and we gambled it away on a guy who has the word socialist in his title. Now, again, I don't personally believe in that, but there are a lot of people in the Democratic base that try to vote strategically in that way. Okay, let's see here. Meg says, you keep bringing up Trump after I told you 2 times that I don't follow Trump but go off. You know, Meg, I'm not bringing up Trump as a gotcha. I'm bringing up Trump because the reality of the Republican Party right now is that they are allowing Trump to do whatever he wants, including things that should upset you. And so where you are saying, I don't follow Trump, so I'm not, invested in the things that he's doing. But if you don't like the things that he's doing, it is the Republican Party that is allowing him to do it, And so are you on the phone with your representatives, with your right-wing representatives about them stopping what Trump is doing if you're not a fan of Trump and what he's doing? All right, Cacpeck says, will there be consequences for the people in the Epstein files? Yes, if we do the work of making sure that it happens. People with that much power and money to even be in those files are going to have many avenues for which they can evade accountability. And so it's going to take work. The good people in government and the good people in the justice system do not have the necessary political power and financial resources to make sure that those people are held accountable by themselves. They need our help. This is not a system that I would have liked. Like the Republican Party has allowed the billionaire class to take over our judicial system and our government. And so that is part of the reason why I do this work, is to try to get people to not vote for those people anymore. Okay, Meg says, I see your point, but yeah, a lot of things he's doing I don't like, but what am I going to do about it? Well, you don't have to tell me where you live, Meg, but can you tell me if your representatives in the federal government, if your House members or your senators are Republicans or are they Democrats? And did you vote for them? Jay Ship says, what's the best way to implement UBI? Everybody gets it, whether you are rich or poor. If you can opt out of it if you're like a rich person and you want to like do the right thing, like you're not going to get it. We can start with something simple like $1,000 a month for everybody in America. We pay for it by taxing the shit out of billionaires and massively profitable corporations. And we break up monopolies so that those companies can't just raise their prices, in relation to how much extra money that everybody has. Meg says, I live in Virginia. Okay, so I believe that you only have Democratic representatives then. Okay. So that does make things a little bit harder for you, affecting any change. But if you have a consistent record of voting Republican, then you can talk to Republicans who are running for office and say, these are the things that I care about in regards to making sure that, stopping whatever thing that Trump is doing that you don't like. Like, tell me a thing that you don't like that Trump is doing, and I can tell you, like, what to say to the representatives in order to make that clear, And you can even get in touch with the Democrats in your state and let them know how you feel. And that, listen, I'm a conservative, but I really don't like that Trump is doing this and this and this. Okay, Bitneva says, if Marco Rubio had to choose between saving the USA and Yayo, which country would you go to? Good question, Bitnevo. Def Me says, have you seen this new guy, Musab Ali, running for office now? Yeah, I don't know who that is. It sounds a little bit like Timothy Chalamet's character from Dune. Seth Maxey says, how would you feel about a general government test in order to vote so we know they're not mindless? It's dangerous territory, Seth Maxey. You don't want to end up with a Jim Crow situation where you have like a shitty, impossible to pass test for people in districts that you don't want voting. Like if you were a shitty Republican president who didn't want Democrats to vote, you could give an impossibly difficult test in states, in blue states or in Democratic districts, and then that would keep Democrats from being able to vote. So yeah, like how do you get accredited? Like, is it a class that you need to take? The devil's in the details there. I think a better way of going about it would be not to give everybody a test before they can vote, but just make sure that every single school, be it private or public, has civics as a core tenet of their education so that everybody has an understanding of what the government does and how it works and what it's responsible for and what it's not responsible for and how we as citizens can affect change. All right, Rid says, should the United States be put under sanctions for violating international law? I probably, that makes sense to me. Mutter says, thoughts on classical fascism, not Nazism. I'm not for any flavor of fascism. Genji says, how can we possibly make the 30% of MAGA Americans give up on Trump? So the way that you should be thinking about this is not convincing MAGA to not be MAGA. The way you should think about this is you want to take somebody who's a non-voter and turn them into a voter. You want to take a centrist and turn them into a progressive. You want to take a soft Republican voter and turn them into an independent voter. You want to take a MAGA voter and just start to build that little kernel of doubt in them that maybe will grow into them getting out of, the MAGA cult. So, yeah, if you are interested in that, there's a book called The Persuaders that you can find linked on my Discord. Link is in the bio. But yeah, convincing people to move politically in one direction or another is a big job. And if that's the kind of job that you want to take on, then I say fucking go for it. And check out The Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. Martin Luther says, are you a Democrat or Republican? I'm a Democrat. Genji says, Trump was good on motivating non-voters this time. Podcast bros boosted him to normiedom. Yeah, I think that whenever you have a outsider / change candidate, you motivate a lot of non-voters. He definitely didn't motivate enough people to vote to beat Biden's 2020 election, which is like the most votes that a presidential candidate has ever gotten in American history. Watcher says, do you think there should be different political parties? Yeah, but if we're going to get them, we would need ranked choice voting, and the Republican Party is trying to make ranked choice voting illegal. So if you want more parties, you got to vote for Democrats. Jay City says, what are your thoughts on the Hassan smear campaign that is going on right now? So I do think that there are centrists within the Democratic Party establishment that love fucking dragging their feet and stomping on the necks of the progressive wing, no matter if it's AOC or Mamdani or, talking heads, extremely popular talking heads like Hassan. Now, that being said, Hassan has said some pretty fucking bananas shit, like just the one thing that comes to mind is him going out there with his whole ass saying that if Gavin Newsom is the nominee, then he's voting third party or not voting at all. I'm just like, that is a wildly irresponsible thing to say. And I'm a fucking progressive. Like, we're supposed to be on the same team here. So I think that some of it is good faith, like especially if you go into the deep archives. The dude has said some extremely problematic things. I don't have any of them off the dome, but I have just heard them referenced in the past. So I think some of that is in good faith, but I think that some of it is, come on, guys. Come on. Like, fucking, you have all this energy and all this passion towards the progressive wing. Maybe we can lean into it a little bit. Maybe we can actually meet the voters where they are. And Muzz King, D. Scott, Aaron Gregory, and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. All right, where are we at here? Chili Supremacy says, would you ever forgive Kanye? He would need to do a lot for me to forgive him. And I used to be a huge fan of his. So, yeah, he really fucking lost me as a fan with all the shenanigans. Jin Udenhan says, are you for America or Israel? I am for the citizens of both of those countries, and I am against the governments of both of those countries. Rachel Reviews says, I can't wait to vote Marco Rubio next election. Is that real, Rachel Reviews? Because I never met anybody who was excited about voting for Marco Rubio. Caleb says, do you think Vance is different from Trump? Oh, yeah, wildly different. Way less charismatic, but way smarter and more dangerous. What's up? Anything debating? Good to see you again. Seth says, what about making the citizenship test a graduation requirement for all high schoolers? Yeah, I'm not mad at that. But again, the devil's in the details. I would want to know what happens if somebody fails that test. What are the mechanisms for them passing it? Meg says, I would vote for Vance in 2028. But aren't you upset about Vance being a part of the Trump regime, like of signing off on everything that Trump is doing, Meg? Dr. Ben Stone says, will Bibi get reelected this year? I've got no fucking idea. Okay, let's see here. Cacpeck says, is nationalism good or bad? Again, it depends on how you define these terms. Like, there's a difference between nationalism and patriotism. And I basically define it as patriotism is you love your country, nationalism is you love your country and you hate every other country. And I don't think that that is a positive thing. So I would say instead of being nationalist, how about instead we be patriotic instead? Okay. Let's see here. Meg says Vance is a lot smarter than Trump ever was. But he's involved with Trump. Like, I think I saw when I asked you earlier, Meg, like what you don't like about what Trump is doing. I think you said something about the economy. Like Vance is doing the same things, like he is signing off on this. He is supporting Trump through all of this nonsense. But yeah, let me know what you think about why is Vance being a part of the Trump administration not a deal breaker for you who does not believe that what Trump is doing is good. Let's see here. Kimberly says, I support Vance taking a 2-year paternity leave. He could take the rest of his life for paternity, as far as I'm concerned. John Abbott says, as long as poverty requires people to drop out of high school, the citizenship test is tied to schooling will always be an active disenfranchisement. It also depends on the context of nationalism. Scottish nationalism is we want sovereignty. American nationalism is we want ethnic cleansing. That is all very accurate. Okay, Anything Debating says, thoughts on AOC James Taylor Rico? I think that ticket could turn Texas blue. Yeah, potentially. I like both of those people, so I would vote for that ticket in the primary. Tommy says, do you think that Israel will use nuclear against Iran? I don't think so, and I very much hope not. Odyssey says, opinion if Trump passes away, if it will be worse for us. No, it will be better for us. The value that Trump has is in a rabid fan base that will never, ever leave him. And Vance does not have that juice. Rubio does not have that juice. I would say there's almost nobody in the Republican Party infrastructure that has that juice. So, yes, it is true that Vance is smarter. Yes, it is true that he's more dangerous because he is smarter. He will be able to do the things that Trump is doing, but in a way that is not so obvious. And, the mainstream media is going to be fucking tripping over themselves to normalize somebody like J.D. Vance and basically try to say to every Republican, like, see, just do it normal. Just do it normal, and we won't yell at you, we promise. And I think that that's really dangerous. But I don't think that he has the power to sway elections the way that Trump did, the power to motivate non-voters the way that Trump did. Hydra Teching says, Trump admin hates unions and lied about supporting Union later. That is accurate. Ada Oliete says, I'm a communist. Hello from Spain. Hello back. Odyssey says, so Republican Party is dead pretty much. Not dead enough, Odyssey. Like, the Republican Party still controls all 3 houses of government right now. The Republican Party is still the most well-funded political organization in America. The Republican Party has more money and power than any other political party in America. And so they are dangerous. They're extremely dangerous. And so we need to do everything that we can to unelect every single one of them and replace them with better politicians. The shorthand for that is the Democrats need to be the ones who get those jobs instead of the Republican Party. I know it's not cool to cape for the Democratic Party, but they're way better than the Republicans are. So replace the Republicans, let them feel that electoral consequence. Maybe they will change then because of that. John Eats says, Democratic Party is going to fall once Trump is gone. He's the only reason they still exist. That is not true at all, John Eats. BitNevo says, White House compared the downed pilot to Jesus. Shot down Friday, rose in a cave by Sunday. Yeah, if I rolled my eyes as hard as that comment necessitates, I would go blind. Peck says more people will vote for the Democrats next election because of the wars in Iran and other things, question mark. That's my guess. The issue is, will the Republican Party and Trump do things to try to lie, cheat, and steal their way to electoral victory? I think in an even playing field, the Democrats would run away with it. All right. Heart emoji. Peck says, is abortion good? It can be. It is a tool. It's a medical tool that some people can use for good, and other people can use for not good. Hart says, socialism on top. We need it. We need it in the U.S. even more. Yeah, I'm not mad about adding socialist policies to what we have. We already have some. I just think we need more. Genji says, it's already happening. Dems are picking up seats left and right. This year will be a massacre. Again, Genji, let's not get overly confident. The Republican Party still has a lot of power. Even as they are becoming less and less popular, they're becoming more and more dangerous. Odyssey says, after Trump, will we ever get a Bernie? We will if people do the work. Odyssey, the only reason why we weren't able to get Bernie Sanders in 2016 or 2020 is because people didn't do enough work to elect him. That's it. John Eats says, sorry, but you are illogical. The approval rating of both Trump and Democrats show my point. No, that is not true, John Eats. So you can show me, whatever polls you want, but polls are just a snapshot. They are not, conclusive. They are just one piece of data to keep in mind. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, and John, you said the only reason that Dems exist is to be anti-Trump, but that's not even a little bit true. The Democratic platform is very little about Trump, if any. I'm confident that they don't even mention him in the platform at all. Caleb said, what has to be done to bring prices down and things affordable if possible? Stop the stupid trade war that Trump is doing. Break up monopolies. I love Cory Booker's plan for eliminating income tax for anybody making less than $70K a year. That would put more money in people's pockets, which would increase the base of consumers, which would bring down costs because it would be easier for companies to make a profit if there are more people buying their product. John Eats says their whole point running last election was to defeat Trump. Kamala had zero policy. That is a lie, John Eats. You are in question jail, John Eats. You either ask a question or you leave. But I do not truck with what you are selling. Oh, I forgot to plug my computer in. Hold on a second, guys. Be right back. Alrighty. What do we got here? Let's see here. You should be charging now. Hopefully, my computer is charging now. Doesn't look like it is, though. Thank you to Chili Willie and Muzzking for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. Yeah, my apologies for how unprofessional this is. There we go. Now we're charging. Okay. Let's get back into these comments. John Eats says, okay, sure. Are you a political puppet and why? I am not a political puppet, John Eats. I should clarify you have to ask good faith questions and not just try to get into a fight with me. Peck says, did you see Trump's tweet where he said praise Allah in a racist way? I did. It's bananas. Whether he actually tweeted that out or not, like the dude needs to be 25th Amendment a year ago. C. Flan, good to see you again. When is your next comedy set? The first comedy set that I know I'm going to be doing this year is going to be on November 30th. Dates will be on my website soon. I might have a show before then, but that is the earliest because my wife is going to be giving birth Any day now. All right. Sabens says Hungary. I don't know too much about Hungary. Odyssey says, how serious are they taking away women's votes? Is it just fear mongering? So they are serious about trying to take away women's votes, Odyssey. The mechanism by which they're trying to do that is a piece of legislation called the Save America Act, which is a massive voter suppression bill that would make it really difficult for women who got married and changed their names to be able to vote going forwards. There's data on this. They've crunched the numbers, and there are 20 million people who would have a harder time voting if the Save America Act passed. Now, it's very unlikely that that will pass, but that does not mean that there are not other ways that Trump and the Republican Party might try in the future to keep women from voting. Odyssey says, I hate sounding paranoid. I mean, it's difficult to not sound paranoid because the Trump administration and the Republican Party are engaged in the exact kind of conspiracy shit that they have been claiming the Democratic Party has been doing for a long time. So, all right, let's see what we got over here. Poli-Sci King. I figured that out. Isn't it crazy we get a time for our modern war crimes? Do you think Trump understands the whole Gulf would go dark? I don't think that Trump understands anything about geopolitics. How can the pilot be Jesus when Trump is Jesus? Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that was about the Easter comments. All right. Opposed Chimera says Trump versus Biden first year in office, objectively speaking. Biden by a fucking mile. Biden did so much more for America with a way worse hand than Trump. Trump was given an amazing economy and an amazing government that was well organized and non-radicalized by the Obama administration. And Trump handed Biden a fucking garbage fire. And Biden was able to wrangle out the speediest recovery, the lowest post-COVID inflation in the Western world, the largest investment in renewable energy in our nation's history, strengthened the unions, breaking up monopolies, lowered healthcare costs. Like, yeah, man, it's fucking night and day. All right, John Abbott says, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they are not to get you. Accurate as hell. Opposed Chimera says, Trump's second term versus Biden first year in office, objectively speaking. Again, Biden in a fucking landslide. Odyssey says, do you have an Amazon to send a baby item? Oh, that's very sweet of you, Odyssey. But my wife has told me I'm not allowed to do that. But there are other ways that you can help support if you would like. These are my places where you can donate. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And you can also, if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you nothing, but helps me out a ton. And you can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in the bio. Okay, Cflon says, I will gladly take Shadow President Ron over Stephen Miller any day. Is that Ron DeSantis? Which Ron are you talking about? Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Kenny says, do you think Iran will surrender to Trump? No. I very much do not. Heart emoji says, the Electoral College limits our democracy. It must go. Thoughts on it? I agree with you 1,000%. The Electoral College has got to go. At the very, the thing that I think, there are so many things wrong with the Electoral College, but the one thing that I'm just like, you cannot deny that it depresses voter turnout. Because when you are in a solidly red state or a solidly blue state, you feel like your vote does not count. If you're a Democrat in a Democrat state, you figure, why should I vote when my state's going to go my way anyways? If you're a Republican living in a blue state, you think, why should I vote? The state's going blue anyways. And vice versa for red states as well. So yeah, it undervalues people's votes. It depresses voter what's the word I'm looking for? Voter participation. Yeah, it's got to go. It's got to go. Ron Klain. I know that name. Why do I know that name? Is that like a thing? Like a TV something? Who the fuck is Ron Klain? Good Lord. I understand why I know that name. Kenny says, will Trump ever be impeached? So he was impeached twice already in his first term. If Democrats take the House, there is a 100% chance that Trump is getting impeached again. Will he be removed from office? That's a taller order. You would need 2/3 of the Senate. In order for Democrats to be able to do that, they would need to get more seats, or they would need some Republicans to cross the aisle and vote to remove Trump from office. There is a possibility that Democrats could win every single Senate seat that is up for re-election in 2026. There's a very small chance that happens. It's most likely not going to happen, but it is mathematically possible. Alrighty. D. Scott says, Klain worked as chief of staff under Biden. Yes. I don't know, but I am mad at him for hiding Biden's mental decline from the world. Cephalon says, Ron Klain was in the Obama administration and helped run the Biden administration. Yeah, again, a better president than Donald Trump. There is no doubt about it. But he's still on my shit list for basically costing us 2024. Pink Squirrel says, what do you think of all the Lego propaganda videos? They're funny as hell. As somebody who is mad at my government, I appreciate other governments taking pot shots at them, troll game on point. Let's go. Tamla says, I need advice. A lot of my family are leftists and are against Democrats. How do I convince them to vote? That's a really good question, Tamla. So this is a hard one because there is a lot of propaganda out there telling people on the far left to not vote for the Democratic Party, to teach them a lesson, to push them further to the left. And it's hard. It's hard to break that logic down. I guess I'm trying to think of what would be the most convincing thing to say. Here's what I would say. Look at all the people who didn't vote in 2024 because they wanted to teach Democrats a lesson, because they did not like what Biden's policy was towards Israel or whatever, and so they just did not vote. And now look at all the damage that has happened. Look at all of the people who are suffering because of it. The families of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, if they could go back in time, they would go back. They would beg people to vote for Kamala Harris instead to save their families. There are over 100 school children who were murdered by an American bomb in Iran. They would be alive. Their families would still be intact if only people had voted for Democrats in 2024. Now, if they don't like the current breakdown of the Democratic Party, then there are 3 things that they need to do. And this is what I say to anybody who is so far to the left that they feel like they wouldn't be able to live with themselves if they voted for the Democratic Party. Here's what I would say. First, you got to get out there and vote in the primary elections. Because if you don't vote in the primary, then you have no right to criticize who the nominee is that you do not want to vote for. That's number 1. Number 2 is, it is your job to convince people to follow you and to vote for the same politicians that you are voting for. And the third thing is, if you are unsuccessful in convincing enough people to vote for your candidate, that candidate wins the primary, then you need to vote for better over worse. Otherwise, we're going to see more sad families, like the sad families of Renee and the sad families of Alex and the sad families of all of those fishermen off the coast of Venezuela, and the sad families of those school children in Iran. But yeah, I think that there are unproductive ways to try to shame people into voting. But there are ways where you can meet people where they are and be like, I agree with you. This is bad what the Democratic Party did, but let's think about this strategically. Let's think about this logically, And I just got to say this, I try my best to be as magnanimous and understanding as I possibly can be with people that don't vote the way that I vote, whether you are further to the right than me or further to the left than me. But something that I absolutely cannot fucking abide is people saying I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I voted for Kamala Harris or, insert whatever Democrat, Gavin Newsom or whatever. And I'm like, fucking get over yourself. Like, get over yourself. Like, the families of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, they don't give a fuck if you can't look yourself in the mirror because you voted for Kamala Harris. Like, this is bigger than you. This is bigger than you and the image that you have of yourself. As a non-voting revolutionary. That's as mean as I'm going to get today, guys. Ryan Doc says, why not run Gavin Newsom instead of Kamala? It would have seemed extremely racist and sexist to not just run the vice president. Cac Peck says, how do we lower the unemployment rates? So there's a couple of things to keep in mind there. Cac Peck's like, in a normal world, there are things we could do to lower unemployment rates. The main issue that we're having is with monopolization, where these companies are not competing anymore, which means that they can set prices at whatever they want, which means that they don't need to get more customers. They just need to charge the customers that they have more. If you break up monopolies, then you introduce price competition again, which means that you lower prices, which means that more people are buying shit, which means that you need to hire more people to make the shit for the people to buy. But the other thing you need to keep in mind is that artificial intelligence is likely, if not today, if not tomorrow, maybe 10 years from now, whatever, at some point, AI is going to eliminate a lot of jobs. And so we need to stop thinking about unemployment as, how do we get this number down? But instead as, what do we do with people for whom there are no jobs for us to give? Gustavo says, do you think real political discourse will dissolve from the abrasive rhetoric from the right? No. But the trick is we can't fall for it. We can't fall for them trying to eliminate good political discourse with their rage baiting. We have to make sure that we stay on message and that we stay operating in good faith. Sophia, my old buddy, good to see you again, says, do you think healthcare should be fully government run? Or is there still a role for private insurance too? There is an argument that would say that having private insurance takes away resources and undermines universal healthcare. I am open, though, to either argument. I am open to either system. I think it is long since time that we had at least had a single payer option that you could purchase into, and you could buy the government's healthcare plan instead of Aetna's or Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever. That's like the bare minimum. We should also have universal healthcare as well. Okay, Ryan Doc says, why does the Republicans and Democrats both support Israel so much? So Ryan Doc, this is the last thing that I'm going to say, and then I got to get out of here. If you are looking for the politicians that stand up to Israel, they are all in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party doesn't 100% stand up to Israel, but the Republican Party 99% does not stand up to Israel. So I think it's over half of the Democrats in the Senate have voted against sending more money and weapons to Israel. I need to figure out what the number is for the House on the Democratic side, but there are none in the Republican Party except for Thomas Massie. So if you are looking for the political party that is and will in the future stand up to Israel and AIPAC, they are in the Democratic Party. Full stop. And here's the thing. If your senator or your House member is not one of those Democrats that is standing up to Israel and AIPAC, it is still better to have a Democrat in that seat than a Republican, because that Democrat will empower the Democrats who are standing up to Israel and AIPAC. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you again for being here, for all your questions and your comments and your support. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling in this rapidly escalating cost of living crisis. But if you want to, you can. The mechanisms are there. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you $0, helps me out a ton. And you can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. If there are questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, then please reach out to me, because I want to be a resource for you. I want to be a resource for you to be more involved and more informed about politics. So if there's any way that I can do that for you, use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. You can shoot me a DM. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord channel. The Discord is great because there's a great community there as well, and there's great recommendations there for books and podcasts and civic actions that you can take and nonprofits that you can volunteer for. And yeah, just we all got to do some work to fix this, because that is the only way that we get out of this, is if we do the work. There are good people in government, but they do not have the resources and they do not have the political power to do this by themselves. So they need our help. So get out there and do the work. Join the Discord. If you don't know what the work is, join the Discord. Link is in the bio. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat